It's a circle and it's linear. Alright, so it's a circle and it's linear. And it's an 8 on the side. That's infinity, the sign for infinity. It's a circle, that's 360. It's a line, because it can go straight. A square and a circle and all that is still saying the same thing, because it's still going all the way around. The difference between a circle and a square would be like a sphere and a cube. Same thing. Alright, so for all intents and purposes. So it's not that the Muslims took, not just that the Muslims took, I'm talking about Elijah Muhammad's Muslims, that they took 120 on face value. I mean, technically, if you look at it from a technical perspective, and this is for the advanced people. I'm just doing footnotes on the side for that same class. We still in the same class. I'm doing footnotes on the side. Once you get to the point where you look at the first degree in 1 to 10. So, when you first get 120, before you had even got a set of 120, someone must have drew you in, or you were exposed. Somehow you figured out that it's 120. Right? Now, once you get to that point, then you go in. So when you get to the 1 to 10, most of the time you're taking that on face value unless you've been doing some study. Once they tell you that the black man is God, and you've been getting to it and getting fed, especially most of the black people in America are fed European Christianity, that they put a black twist to it. Pretty much. They might blackadize Jesus and, and the dance and the rhythm and the drum and they go to black church and they the same as white church. Okay, so even though we did that and we kind of ingrained in it, so it's kind of in us, like, the ones who are in it are in it. It is what it is. You can't just say you're going to abandon them because that's what they're in. No, this stuff comes in levels. So, now back to face value. See, everybody got how they see it. But I always found that, and I wouldn't really say you take it on face value because you're going to still do your research. Pardon me. But, like Elijah Muhammad would say, pardon me, beloved, when he do that cough, on Theology of Time, you gotta listen to Theology of Time, you hear him doing that cough, because by then it's gotta be Theology of Time, it's gotta be around in the 70s or something like that, in the 1970s, I think that's when he was making that. But anyway, what I'm saying is, when most people get to I self is the true reality, son of man, God, you've probably been around the gods long enough that you understand they're not talking about a mystery God and how they see man to be God. And then where did they get the concept from? The Father, right? And it just goes on up the tree until you get to WD, and in that tree, in that particular tree, when you get to WD, you're going to see the knowledge and understanding there, like, that's going to give you that knowledge, understanding. And they used to say, 13X, but he was the only Muslim with knowledge and understanding, and it was unknown to them. Right? Alright, so, anyway, back to the thing where, alright, because we always say, I'm not taking 120 on face value. The Muslims took 120 on face value. But technically, the Muslims didn't take 120 on face value. They may have took supreme wisdom on face value, but there wasn't no 120 then. It was just with supreme wisdom. Go back and look. You'll see they didn't have a set of 120. They had supreme wisdom. They had mathematics, but it wasn't our mathematics. They had a form of mathematics. that was part of the problem book, pretty much. But it wasn't our mathematics. It wasn't like that. You know, even though the words came out of 120, just like if you go to the 12 Jews, those words all came out of 120. If you go to the mathematics and the alphabets, pretty much all those words are in 120, but they're not really there like that. Like you can see them, you know. Because you could say when the knowledge of the original man, you know, like that, you can see it's there, but it's not in the form that we actually see: knowledge, wisdom, understanding, so forth and so forth, so forth and so on, as the elders would say. That's what I'm talking about. So I found it to be easier to develop your understanding in the world of knowledge yourself, which they call Law World Manifest. And I say they to say, this happened before I was in the nation. You're talking around 1968 is when everything is pretty much getting solidified into where it's going to manifest itself. Of course, you had some other hits and different changes in 72, and then 76, 79. Next thing, I think the next big run is the 80s after 79, and then you don't really hear nothing. Yeah, 79, then well, for me it would be 80s. That's the next run. Then you get the 90s. But anyway, the point I'm making is, it's much easier if you look at 120, and for the time being, until you can argue the law, you base that on how you're going to do your research. Because maybe you got 120 and you don't have any books because you only got 120. And you haven't done your own research, but you still don't understand. We don't go and get history and find out everything first about 120, and then we quote 120, and then we bear witness to one. That's not how we do it. That's how you do it? That's not how I do it. That's not how I got to it. First, you would be in the vicinity, and your light would see that light, and you would want some more light. And somebody give you knowledge of self. But when they give you knowledge of self on that one particular degree, that this shit comes in degrees. When they give you that, that's just knowledge of who you are. You. But do we accept that right away? No. We do, but we don't. In our head, we be saying, it's an argument now, even in your own head, when you first grab it. That first thought is it's either an argument in your head, or you go, see, I knew it. I just couldn't prove it. You couldn't figure it out. It's one of them two. Sometimes you're a little foggy, they not sure. That means you're still tussling you on the other side. If it don't ring you and you say, oh shit, that's right. If you don't do it like that, then you doing it the other way. You still need to do research and analyze it and da-da-da-da. All right. But it doesn't matter which side you do it on. If you say, okay, I'm not going to say it's right or it's wrong, but 120 said that the original man is God, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find all this stuff I could find that's ancient, that shows and proves, because if you don't do that, then you're going to be looking at the devil's shit. He's going to definitely tell you some different shit. See, you don't know. You have to know how to differentiate who's the devil and who's the original. And once you can see that on that level, because of course we're not talking about on a physical level, one-on-one, you an individual, they're an individual. That's another manifestation of who's the devil and who ain't. But on a large scale of planetary, it's a planetary scale. So you're on the globe of the planet Earth, and I'm looking down from another planet, or looking at, across, up, whatever way it is, which is relevant, or not relevant, which way you want to look at it. Space, you feel me? Like all you scientists that's going in space, your mind just clicked there. Mine did too. But we can't always go way out in space. Sometimes we're going to stay right here for a minute just to get the point across, you feel me? But anyway, as I'm saying, not to veer off, when you first got it, those are the two things that took place. You clicked in or you clicked out. So that's in a form of saying either you totally kind of bear witness like I did, which I had other stuff probably before that though, but not solidified. You just, whatever you knew. If you was a reader, you read other stuff. If your family knew things, then you got that information. If you was just going straight Christian, it all depends on where you came from, what your rule was. So if you came from like the normal amount of us are mostly coming from somewhere along the tree. If it ain't your parents, it's your parents' parents. You might got lucky and your parents was on, and now you got it. But some people, their parents wasn't on, and you got it. You the first one, so it's a little harder when it comes that way, because you got people fighting against you to do it. You feel me? The pressure is on, son. So it's not like they want you to be. I don't know. It's like the Asiatic people give you more strife if you unconscious and you wake up. Like in the Matrix, it's not nothing bad to be unconscious. There's plenty of civilized people in there unconscious. They're just not uncivilized. They do things right and exact. They ain't running around here trying to murder, kill, mayhem, and whatever. But you can see the way they eat and how they live and what they doing. You still at 85. You just kind of civilized, and you do civilized things. You live a civilized lifestyle, but that's still not saying, that's not changing the subject. That at the end of the day, if you look at it from that perspective, when you're doing that kind of research, you still might fall victim if somebody don't show you. Because I'm thinking back and I'm saying, I wouldn't have knew to read those books. I wouldn't have knew where they were at. Somebody got to start you off. Once you get put on, like once you get put on with the math, then you try to get all that your enlightener got in lessons. And then, so you can put it all together. Whatever he got plus stuff that gives him another insight on certain things, how you see 120. Once you do that, it's a fact. You need it. If you're going to go to the next level with it in your head, so you can have it really, really good, you need to look at the other stuff. You have to look at those plus lessons from W.D. and Elijah. Those ones that those Muslims had. You have to look at those. You have to analyze them. Especially the one that's pertaining to 120. Some of it is, you have to understand allegorical stuff like that. Maybe the Muslims didn't catch it. I don't know. You could have went to Ezekiel's wheel. That's the one they have the most problem with, is mothership. But in your mind, you got to be able to say, okay, look who he's talking to. Gee, first of all, most of the people who he woke up with, they came right out of white Jesus. I mean, damn, if you don't give them something to grab onto, we wouldn't be kind of like we are now. We lucky that he made it where he could do it that way, and then that's how the father was able to get it. Because he was there since like the 30s doing that. And he kept doing it until he did it big. And it came off, because if you notice, he was doing it, right? He went through World War II with that. The end of World War I, that's 30, if he's in 34, 29 just left. If you go back to 29, you're talking Noble Ali's death. If you go to 28, you're talking about the father's birth. You feel me? So you can see the tree coming up, and they all keep saying the same thing. But at the end of the day, I personally think you come out better looking at 120 and following that pattern as opposed to not really sure if 120 is right and this, that, and I gotta analyze everything. Nah, that's not how you learn it good. You don't learn it good doing that, G. It's not how you gonna learn it. If you do that, you're gonna always be trying to find something that contradicts that till you find something that really fits you. You know, maybe you not this. Maybe you something else. Maybe you know. That's why I be saying, son, listen, there's no way that the whole black nation is gonna all be in the same mindset. Is what that's the word I'm seeking. They're not. But for us who are in this side, if you're in another side, we got, we teach on that class too, but today I'm just dealing with this subject matter because you can apply it to your own lessons, whichever house you're in, whatever the denomination, the mathematics, the equation, whatever it is, you can still apply it to that and say, am I taking that mine on face value so that I could do the research on it? And then as you're doing the research on whatever you're doing, you're going to be not biased and say, as long as you keep finding, if you look at it from that perspective and you keep finding that it keeps saying that, yes, you keep going, keep researching till you see who these authors are, what their mindset, what was going on. You could do the check then, and then you do your excavations and yada yada. But first you need to get the information in from the right people. So yeah, at the end of the day, even if you got a set of 120, you still gonna need somebody to show you the wisdom part of 120. You could gather the knowledge, which is the actual degrees, the knowledge is there, but it's just not gonna be the same if you somebody gotta show you stuff and saying this and that. You feel me? So you'll be like this. King Now Cipher, wisdom, Lord, equality, divine God, equality. You'll be like that. They'll teach you how to be that flow. How you see today's mathematics. I see today's mathematics. Boom, 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 right? You see that flow. So, don't you know and understand, black man? That flow, right? You'll have that. And, that you can only get with, you need somebody right there. But other than that, once you got that and they guiding you, and now you get to a certain point. After a certain point, you good. You can roll on your own now. Now you go to your own laboratory and you start putting it together and doing, your research and Let me go back and look back at that knowledge of self. Now that I know this, now I'm gonna go back and look at who's the original man, and I'm gonna go digging deeper into that, because at first we didn't know that we was the original man, and then he told us, he said to his sons, no, you the original man. He gave us 120. So at that moment, are you telling me that at that moment we didn't take it on face value that the Father knew what he was talking about? I'm just saying, because if I would have been there and I would have been looking up to the Father, because he would have been a grown man. I would have been a child. And he's saying to me, black man is God, right? I, self, the true reality, son of man, God. I, the knowledge and the understanding is air-like. If he's teaching me that, and he's teaching me something to the effect, I, self, the true reality, son of man, God. I mean, that's how I got it first. So I'm sure it came from somewhere at the tree. But what I'm saying, the point I'm saying is now it's the Father giving it. And then, he give you the mathematics, the alphabets, and they was getting their 120 not exactly the same way we got it, from what I understand. I wasn't there, but from what I understand, they didn't get their 120 like we got our 120. That we getting our 120 that way now because it became established that we would get 120. But in those days, it was different. So I'm saying to say, when the Father was giving it to them and they was getting it, They were taking it on face value, G. They was automatically saying, I know the father. I'm not really taking it on face value, but I am, because I know the father is